What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It's Thursday, June the 17th. Minicamps in full effect, rolling right through the offseason. In the feed, we got minicamp notes, including thoughts on Tua's tough first day. He bounced back. I'm sure we'll mention that in a minute. The Bears quarterback situation, Jamal Adams coming up. The Super Friends will break down quarterback competitions on today's show. More minicamp news and notes. By the way, would be remiss if I didn't say wish my wonderful father happy birthday. Bob Brinson turning see if it's 2021. That means he's 71 now. Pretty old. But thriving as an older person. Hopefully listening, but probably not his birthday. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button, smash that puppy. And it's U.S. Open week, which means the First Cut Golf Podcast has all your needs covered as the world's best golfers travel to Torrey Pines. They're on the scene in California all week to give you the best picks and props and round-by-round analysis. Listen to First Cut wherever podcasts are found or stream every episode on YouTube. It's not too late to go listen to their first-round leader picks. As long as you're listen to this before 9:45 Eastern time, you can go do that. If it's after that, you're SOL, but you can still get some bets in live, maybe after the first round. Make sure to listen to Kyle, Rick, and all the boys break everything down to talk training camp news and COVID protocols. Ooh, how exciting. The one, the only Jared Dubin. What's up, Dubes?
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Can't complain.
Happy birthday to your father. Big
day. Happy birthday, Bob. Fortunately, we record these later in the day. Obviously, if you listen to this podcast, I'm assuming, if you're new to the podcast, you don't realize we record these the day before and then they go up the next morning. So it's easier to do this later in the day because the news starts to come out. You don't want to be 2 days late reacting to the news. Mm-hmm. And on Tuesday afternoon, about 2:00, Tom Pelissero of NFL Media, NFL Network, dropped the memo from the NFL to teams with protocol modifications. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see these modifications for vaccinated individuals. This is hopefully not going to become a charged discussion, but who knows?
Good luck.
Right, exactly. The vaccination discussion around the NFL has been rather charged. There are various people who are declining to say if they've been vaccinated. There are some people who say they are not going to get vaccinated. It is a personal choice to do however you want to do. But the NFL is, and this is the NFL's right as a business as well, has issued these modifications in terms of these protocols for vaccinated individuals, and the NFL has made its stance quite clear on if there will be benefits to being vaccinated, and there are some big benefits to being vaccinated. For instance, if you are fully vaccinated, you have no daily testing for COVID. If you're not fully vaccinated, testing required, underline, bold, every day. That's a pain in the butt. You're getting swabbed every day. If you're fully vaccinated, masks are not required at the club facility or during team travel. No physical distancing required in club facility with other vaccinated individuals. No quarantine required after high-risk exposure to COVID. That's a big one for teams. No travel restrictions. No capacity limits in weight room when all fully vaccinated. And they may eat in the cafeteria with other fully vaccinated individuals. If you're not fully vaccinated, masks are required at the club facility and during travel. You must remain physically distant from others in the club facility. You must quarantine after a high-risk exposure to COVID. That is a huge deal for games in the season. You will have travel restrictions in effect, and there will be 15-player limit in the weight room for not fully vaccinated people. You must also physically distance in meal room, may not eat with your teammates, and if you're a staff member instead of a player, you must grab and go, no meals in the cafeteria. Restrictions on the sauna and steam room and interactions with friends and family during the team travel are included. But maybe Dubin, the biggest one for me on this list in terms of how it might change the perception of some players and how they'll approach this is that if you are fully vaccinated, there are no restrictions on I read that as social media, but social media marketing or sponsorship opportunities. And if you are not fully vaccinated, you are not allowed to have social/media/marketing/sponsorship activities permitted. These guys make tons of money doing marketing and sponsorship stuff. And if you're not fully vaccinated, you for instance, if you were a Gatorade guy or a Nike guy, you would not be allowed to participate in these events, which probably pay you five figures minimum to do these things. So, man, the NFL is kind of making its stance clear here, Dubes.
Yeah. Good. First of all, like,
sure,
you should encourage everybody. Like, I'd add another one of the things that, you're able to do with the vaccine versus not getting the vaccine is like dramatically reduce your risk of getting COVID.
Sure.
And same for the people around you, and also the severity of symptoms if you do get it. So in addition to all of the football stuff, there's also the reducing your health risk aspect. I don't know. I think it's very strange how many players are just coming straight out and being like, I'm not getting the vaccine, or like it's a personal choice as like a way of saying I'm not getting the vaccine. Yeah, it's a personal choice, but you can also personally choose to do it and, make yourself and those around you safer.
Just to push back. And look, I am perfectly fine. Like, I'm fully vaccinated. I got my last, it was like a week ago. A little bit less than a week ago. And thrilled about it. I will say that, when you go and get your vaccination, and you're reading through the fine print, and they're like, listen, we don't know what the hell is going to happen to you. And this is a study of 15,000 people that have had it done. I think it is perfectly reasonable to at least flinch or hesitate or be like, oh, like that's kind of spooky.
Sure.
And so I think, like, I don't
also, within the league, there's like, so Montez Sweat, for example, comes out and says, there's a lot of information out there and I want to hear experts, but also says that he didn't like hearing from the experts
right
that the football team brought in. So it's a lot of contradiction coming from the people who at the moment are saying no, or it's a personal decision.
That one was weird because he's like, I want more information. It's like, well, they brought in the vaccination expert to give you more information. And
I think the only guy that I can recall that said like definitively, yes, I have been vaccinated is Mahomes.
Interesting. But again, and we are not trying to turn this into a politically charged discussion, but that's not what it is. It's not about politics. It's about, and I don't have a problem with people saying, like, I'm hesitant to,
if you want to get more information, Right. Like but get the information from a doctor.
But don't use, if you're just steadfast in your belief that you're not getting a vaccination but you're using, I want to get more information for it. Like that doesn't really jive, right? I mean, like, you need to either say, I don't know. It's a tough spot for these players. And I understand that people are annoyed that the media is asking them, are you vaccinated or not? And I think that there are probably different layers to, like, you can't put a blanket on these questions that are being asked. Like, are you vaccinated? It does matter. For instance, the Sam Darnold thing. Sam Darnold is ostensibly the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. If he's not vaccinated, if he has a high risk exposure, he could miss 2 games.
And, so for example, last year, Mark Andrews on the Ravens played. I think he has diabetes or something like that. So, if a Ravens player isn't vaccinated and, somehow transfers to Mark Andrews, that matters. All of this stuff matters in terms of not just like the personal choice of the people. But again, that's why, the main thing I say is, reduce the risk for yourself and the people around you, because that includes the players on your football team. And if your goal is to win and you don't want to bring vaccines into it, like, if you don't get it and somebody else on your team gets it from you, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, let's look at it this way. Like, just Sam Darnold.
Yep.
He got mono and he missed a bunch of games, and the Jets were worse because of it. They might have made the playoffs if he hadn't gotten mono. And that,
I don't know about that. They were still coached by Adam Gase. They were still coached by Adam Gase.
No, I know. They were probably not making the playoffs, but if they, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if he doesn't miss X games, maybe they make the playoffs. And if they do make the playoffs, Adam Gase probably isn't fired right now. He's probably still the coach of the Jets somehow, which is that's not a good thing. But like, it affects. The point being is that there's a butterfly effect if a major player misses multiple games as a result of contracting, COVID-19.
Yeah, it's all like, in addition to all of the football effects, there's like life effects, family effects, and and now restrictions on, who you can socialize with, where you can socialize, whether or not you can, do any of the things that you can make money off of the field. Like, there's a lot of incentive to go get it. And, I think the league is justified in terms of the product it wants to put on the field, one. And like, if it's a business decision, the way for them to make their business the best is to have everybody healthy and not contracting COVID.
Yep.
And the best way to do that is to encourage them all to get it. Like, it makes sense from a lot of different angles.
I mean, the NFL is very, I think, transparently encouraging all of its players to get the vaccine.
The NBA did the same thing.
Right.
Like,
Mike
baseball
Zimmer
did the same thing.
Right. Mike Zimmer had this to say when talking about it. He said, the unvaccinated players are going to have a harder time in the season. Zimmer said they're going to be, and I'm getting this from Pro Football Talk via Chris Thomason of the Pioneer Press. They're going to be wearing masks. They'll have to social distance. They'll have daily testings. They won't be able to go home for bye week. They'll have to come back here and test every day. When we go on the road, they won't be able to go out to dinner with anybody. They'll have to travel on buses differently, travel on planes differently. A lot of the meetings will be virtual like this. So there's not only the safety part of being vaccinated, but as far as being part of a football team, it's just going to be so much easier. I believe that Pelissero also noted, I'm looking for it right here, where this is one. This is kind of a big one. NFL players who aren't fully vaccinated will be banned from nightclubs, bars, house parties, concerts, etc., with the NFL and clubs allowed to issue fines of a game check up to $50,000 for the first offense and more thereafter for violating protocols. If you're a 22 to 32-year-old dude who's single and you're not allowed to do any of that stuff during the, I mean, I'm not saying this because I am.
Yeah, no,
I mean, look, get vaccinated. If they're like, you do whatever you want, like off the field, if you're vaccinated, I'm getting vaccinated if I'm a 22-year-old kid. Like, I don't care. Whatever.
A lot of the ways that people socialize are the highest risk activities. And if they want to regulate the highest risk activities, they're going to have to regulate the the socialization. And like, it all leads back to the same thing.
Yep. And the other thing too, that's going to come into play, and it'll be very interesting to see how different individuals handle this. But if you're a borderline guy on the roster, Brandon Beane has said this. Teams, and people are not going to like the way it sounds, but teams are going to make decisions. If you got two dudes who are basically even, and one guy is able to be a part of the team, and one guy isn't able to because of the vaccine, like that could be the tiebreak between making a roster.
Oh yeah, and look, there's going to be the amateur lawyers out there and come out and be like, that's discrimination. But I'm sorry, unvaccinated people are not a protected class.
Sure.
Like.
I
am a lawyer.
Also, I think this is also a pretty huge one. Also, this is from Tom Pelissero. Also, for unvaccinated individuals during travel, no outside guest in hotel room. That means, hypothetically speaking, if you were to seek out a friendly encounter with someone of the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever floats your boat, you wouldn't be able to do it on the road if you aren't vaccinated. As Pelissero notes, it is also no using hotel gym, pool, sauna, etc. Minimal eating, drinking on plane. No seeing friends or family. So basically, fly by yourself and sit in your room until kickoff. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, tough life, I guess. Like,
I mean, it'd be fine. You
don't want to do it. Go get the vaccine then.
Yeah. Again. I'm sure we'll get some Apple Podcast reviews or like these. Anyway, they will complain about the way that we have this discussion, but this is not Dubin and I necessarily saying.
I'm not telling you what to do.
I'm saying that the NFL is saying, hey, look, do whatever you want. But as Zimmer said, life is a lot easier if you go get vaccinated for these players.
And it's the same thing that city and players. It's the same thing that city and state and federal governments all around the world have done. Is life is much easier for vaccinated people because of the protections that it provides. It's like, it's not different than anything else. It's just in a business setting.
Yeah. And look, if someone has, if you are genuinely nervous about getting vaccinated and don't believe that it would be like, my biggest problem with everything that's going on right now is the shaming on all sides of things. Like the anti-vaxxers are shaming, anti-maskers are shaming, pro-maskers are shaming, pro-vaxxers are shaming. There's too much shaming going on out there.
I wouldn't say that's the primary issue, but it is an issue.
It's an issue. It's just, these players can't say, I don't know. I mean, they can't say, hey, I'm exploring my options. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to learn more without just a dog pile of people flying onto him about it. And that's
I would say that kind of happens with like almost every quote from players at this point. It's like,
that's probably true. Yeah.
Like, they'll say, I want to get the ball more, and people will pile on them.
Yeah.
And you take an already charged debate and throw that into it again. Like, no matter what, people are going to get. Also, people on the internet want to be angry about something, just generally.
Sure.
And it's a pretty easy thing to get angry about. But, I do think the contradictions from certain players are things that, like, you can take issue with.
That's fair.
And there's some things that are wrong, if people come out and say things that are wrong, like, if everyone else is vaccinated and I'm not, then I'm good, right? Like Cole Beasley said earlier in the offseason. And, that's just not true.
Right.
Like,
it's a hot button topic. All right. We got a couple quarterback items we have to hit, but that is the big news of the day. And sorry if you didn't like the vaccination talk, but I mean, the NFL is taking a pretty hardline stance on it, and that's going to matter for individuals. And that was the big news out of training camp. All right. After the break, some discussion. Is Derek Carr retiring? Is Derek Carr going to walk away from football just because the contract won't be honored? We'll talk about that next. Diva, this is how Diva puts this in the rundown. Derek Carr threatens to quit and make Brinson miserable for having one less person to hate on is the headline in our rundown here. But Derek Carr was asked about what would happen if he said, he was like, if you went on the Raiders, I'd probably quit football if I had to play for somebody else. I'm a Raider for my entire life. I'm going to root for one team for the rest of my life. It's the Raiders. So I just feel that so strong in my heart. I don't need a perfect situation to make things right. I'd rather go down with the ship. You know what I'm saying? If I have to. He also added, and this is so weird, I thought. And it's not me hating on the Raiders. If you don't like me and things that I talk about too much, then this is not the podcast for you. Yeah. He also was like, I signed a contract. I'm going to honor that. I have to honor that contract. It's like, well, no, I mean, yes, you did sign a contract, but you have no guaranteed money left in your deal. You know what contract you signed. You know how the NFL works. It feels like he's getting a little nervous that the Raiders might make a move and wants to. He does this every offseason. I don't know. What do you take away from all this?
I take away, like, good for him if all he wants to do is only play for the Raiders. People want to work certain places to make themselves happy. And if that's what he wants, that's what he wants, but it's not like the Raiders are some great organization that's like put him in position for a lot of success. Right. So, he could very easily be in a better, football and personal situation if he goes and plays elsewhere. Like being the quarterback of the Raiders is a pretty cool job. The silver and black uniforms are awesome. The fans in Oakland were awesome. It's probably pretty cool to live in Las Vegas as, a young, successful person that's making a bunch of money. It's not been a particularly well-run organization during his time there.
Has not.
And it does not look like a team that's necessarily going to be, competing for Super Bowls anytime soon. There's, a degree of personal comfort there for him, I guess. And, if he wants to stay, good for him. But, if he got traded to another team and was in a better football situation, like, I would consider keeping playing and not giving up, your 20 whatever $1 million base salary so that you can play for John Gruden.
He has a 22.125 cap hit this year with a dead cap number of $2.5 million. In other words, the Raiders can save nearly $20 million of salary cap space if they were to cut him. And then he has 19 point. What's that?
I wouldn't think they're going to cut him this year. They don't
Oh,
have anybody else, and there's no.
The only way they cut him is if they trade for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
which it feels a little far-fetched. Let me ask you this.
What do they give? They've given up like a lot of stuff over the last few years. Like, I mean, I guess they did get like a 7th round pick swap back for Trent Brown and like mid-round picks that they got in the Gabe Jackson and Rodney Hudson trades. But
well, let me ask you this. If that's the only reason I can think why Derek Carr would come out and say that, unless he's angling for a new contract and the Raiders just simply aren't interested in giving it to him. And by the way, the Raiders should not be interested in giving a new contract.
At least not until like they see what else is out there, you know, like
he has when he signed this deal back in 2016, I guess, probably right. People got up in arms about it. Oh, Derek Carr, you can't get that much money. Same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. But in reality, this has been a very team-friendly deal. Now it's made Derek Carr a lot of money. He is generationally wealthy. He's probably gonna play out this deal and make $125 million or something like that. That is
for him. Like, sure. You know, like,
that's a crazy amount of money. He's never gonna have to work again. If he wants to retire, he can. I just think when you look at if you're the Raiders, why would you give him a new contract anytime in the next 2 years? Let him play out the deal, explore your options. You can franchise tag him if you need to, and hammer something out. It's not that hard.
I mean, so first of all, I think he was the highest paid player in league history when he signed his deal. Right. And then Garoppolo signed it, and then he was the highest paid player. And then Russell Wilson signed, and then he was like, this is just what happens with quarterbacks.
Correct.
By the time you get like a year into your contract, it's a bargain. Like this is the whole discussion we had with Dak Prescott 2 summers ago, when it was like, I can't believe they didn't pay him. And you had me on and I was like apoplectic on the podcast. And I was like, you signed him to this now, and in a year and a half, it's going to be a bargain. The same thing happened with Derek Carr. I don't know that the same thing happened with Jimmy Garoppolo just because he's been injured so often, but guys who stay healthy and continue to play at an average or better level, it's a bargain by the time, you know, you think it's bad.
The only non-rookie contract starting level quarterbacks, and I realize that is sort of a difficult. Oh, look at Debo, so good. If you're watching on youtube.com/pick6 or the Pick 6 YouTube channel, hit the like button. If you're watching, hit subscribe. You'll get notified when we get new videos. Scroll down here a little bit, Debo. We see Derek Carr there at $25 million. Right underneath him, this guy named Tom Brady, who I guess, you know, I mean, Tom Brady just willing to take less money wherever he goes, and that's part of a benefit and attracts free agents. Then Ben Roethlisberger, huge drop off.
Well, Brady, they restructured this year. They did that. The Bucks, who never did that in the past and never did void years and things like that.
Yeah,
they did that with a bunch of guys this offseason because of the cap crunch.
And then Big Ben took a pay cut. He's down to $14 million for 1 more year. This is the expectation is he's done after this year. And then Teddy Bridgewater, who was traded for and is battling with Drew Lock for the starting job, Taysom Hill, and then Andy Dalton and Ryan Fitzpatrick. And so those are guys. Technically, I suppose you could go with Tyrod Taylor at $5 million all the way down there, but or Cam Newton at $5 million. But you get the point. All the guys below Derek Carr is basically at the bottom end of the non-rookie starting quarterback deal. That's how quickly this cycles through. By the time he gets to the final 2 years of his deal, when he signed the deal, it was the biggest quarterback contract in football. By the time he gets to 2 years left of his deal, it's basically the cheapest.
Yeah.
You know,
it probably
quarterback deal.
Yeah, it probably contributed that like a bunch of quarterbacks that are just better than him came into the league after he signed that deal.
Sure.
You know, guys like Dak, Lamar, Mahomes, Watson, those guys. And then, you know, other quarterbacks that are better or just as good or whatever hit unrestricted free agency, like Tom Brady and Kirk Cousins. Like, and you know, other guys got monster deals. Matt Ryan got a huge deal. Roethlisberger at one point signed a huge deal and another big extension. Russell Wilson got a big extension. Rodgers got a big extension a couple of years ago.
The Rams and Eagles paid Goff and Wentz.
Yeah, so you know, all of those things tend to happen. And you know, there's another class coming up behind him. You know, Lamar Jackson's going to get extended at some point.
That's the next topic. Yeah. So anyway, just to put a bow on the Derek Carr thing. I don't think it's crazy if he plays 2 more years with the Raiders. I also don't think it's crazy if John Gruden feeling some sort of crunch, pressure, maybe exterior, interior, whatever it is, makes a move in the draft next year or makes a move for a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Like none of that would be insane. So
I think Rodgers wouldn't make very much sense to me anymore. Like they don't have a good offensive line anymore. They don't have good wide receivers. Why would he want to go there?
I agree completely with that.
So that one to me doesn't make much sense. But like I could see if they don't live up to whatever Gruden's expectations for them are this year, them trying to move up in the draft and get one of the quarterbacks. It looks like a deep quarterback class from what I understand, at least. Maybe not necessarily with as much high end, like on the highest end talent as this year. Like there's no Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence has come around once every 10 years.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is generational. It's just one of those situations where the Raiders may feel if they go 6 or 7 and 10 or 6 and 11, they may feel like they need to make a move.
Yeah, look, if they go 6 and 11 and have the 7th pick in the draft or whatever, like they should come out of that draft with a quarterback. And, maybe they can use Derek Carr and their draft pick to move up or, package picks to move up and get something else for Carr on a reasonable $20 million base salary. Like somebody probably would want that, but also if they're going to get a quarterback, I don't think anybody would necessarily pay that much for it, but who knows?
Yeah. And by the way, I agree with you on the Aaron Rodgers thing. In fact, I suggested with my buddies Chuck and Buck on a KJR on Wednesday morning. We were talking about this, and I said, I think you can this is kind of a hot take. It's definitely a hot take. Derek Carr on the Packers would win more games than Aaron Rodgers on the Raiders.
I mean, the overall roster Green Bay has is a lot better.
That's what I'm saying. Division.
I have a lot of confidence in
sure.
Rodgers I have more confidence in Rodgers being able to raise the level of play of the players around him, obviously, than I do in Carr. But he would be in a pretty good situation, obviously, in Green Bay. I wonder what that offense would
Derek Carr getting traded to be like, I'm a Packer for life. This is my team. I will.
Oh, actually, you know what? The Packers with Derek Carr would not win more games because Derek Carr would retire.
That's right. He would walk away from football, and they would just be Jordan Love. You're right. Fair. All right. So you mentioned two guys, or you mentioned Lamar Jackson, then the other guy was going to be, and actually, I guess Kyler Murray's not eligible for one more year.
No,
but
it's all the 2018 guys.
Yes. So Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson are the three guys. I think we had Baker.
Don't count out Josh Rosen. All right.
That's true. Asked about Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh said, Lamar understands what's important. Look what he's done. He's going to get paid, and he knows that via The Athletic. And then Baker Mayfield previously said, everything happens for a reason, and it will handle itself. So just worried about winning. Let's actually take Josh Allen out of this because I think Josh Allen gets done this offseason. I think he gets done for a lot of money. I don't think there are any questions about it. Do you think Lamar Jackson gets done this offseason, and do you think Baker Mayfield gets done this offseason?
I think Lamar does and Baker doesn't. Just there are so many more questions about Baker in terms of his floor, his ceiling, what contributes to his being good, and do you want to pay a guy who everybody's a system quarterback. Like the idea that a system quarterback is a term of derision, I think is a little ridiculous.
Sure.
But if it is a guy whose success is largely a product of scheme and offensive line and coaching, I don't know that you necessarily want to play or want to pay that guy, upwards of $30 million a year or anything like that. I would just be more hesitant until I've seen more from him than we have so far. With Lamar, the dude is going to get paid. Like Harbaugh said, he was an MVP 2 years ago. Last year in a season that people, will tell you was really bad, he was still a top 12 quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
And he adds so much value as a runner. The one thing that I could see making things maybe somewhat difficult is if he tries to get into, the Mahomes range of a contract rather than the Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson contract range, because of the length combined with obviously so much of his game is running the ball, and the longevity I think is somewhat more in question for a player that runs as often as he does. It's not like Dak doesn't run, but Dak runs, 50 times a year and mostly in short yardage and near the end zone. Like, it's not like Lamar gets hit that often, but he is more likely to get a hit that causes a severe injury than Dak. And Dak just got one last year, taking off on a play to run like that, so it is a consideration, but I think like they know how important he is. They know how good he is.
They built their roster around it, basically.
Yeah. And they're a team that manages their books very well. It's not like they don't have the money. They always figure out how to get contributors in the draft. Like, the guys that need to get paid, they pay, and they'll replace an interior defensive lineman down the line, or a running back down the line, or a receiver down the line before they try to replace a quarterback, and try to find somebody else as good as Lamar.
Especially one like Lamar. So I think when you look at the contracts, and Devo, I'm not sure if you have the quarterback contract still up, but Italy again with a strike. Thank goodness this isn't being saved for 2 weeks from now. The Mahomes deal, I tend to think that people will look at this, and again, you can see the numbers as we talk about it on youtube.com/pick6. Go subscribe and hop on board there. I think people will look at the Mahomes thing as an anomaly. I think they'll look at it as he got $45 million over 10 years or whatever it is. And the reason it's higher is because at the end of this contract, which will probably be redone in 5 years anyway, that, they didn't want 4 years to go by and then it's a Derek Carr situation. Mahomes is, down at the bottom of the list for as well as he's played. I also think other quarterbacks around the league and all these players around the league look at Patrick Mahomes as, again, an anomaly. Sort of like the way that's
where I was going to go. Like you said, it's an anomalous contract and he's an anomalous player.
Yeah.
So is Lamar in a different way, but I don't think anomalous in the way of he's so much more valuable than like Mahomes, he is capable of having that type of season, but in terms of just being able to single-handedly win because that guy is on your team, I think Mahomes has shown he's at, a higher level than everybody.
I think NFL, I think the Chiefs and the Cowboys to an extent, and the Texans to an extent, did teams like the Bills and the Ravens a favor. There's a very obvious little window here. You're going to sign for somewhere between $40 million and $1 and $49,999,999, where, you're not going to get more than Mahomes. You're going to get more than Dak because,
That's
for a guy like Lamar or Josh Allen, you've played at a high enough level where you are deserving of that. There's this clear window where you can slot in, and
it is a wide window, though. Are they going to get 42 or are they going to get 46? There's a lot of
Lamar doesn't have an agent either.
Yeah, like it is a wide window, so I don't know that necessarily they did him a favor. Like they gave him a clear target, but it is a wide target.
It's a clear landing area, and then the two sides just have to figure out where they want to land on it. For instance, Dak's deal is 5 years shorter than Mahomes' deal. Mm-hmm. He's only has $15 million less in fully guaranteed money, or in total guaranteed. He's got $32 million in fully guaranteed money more than Mahomes. So if I'm Lamar, give me 41 a year and all that fully guaranteed cash. I'd much rather have the fully guaranteed than.
Yeah, if I'm Lamar, just give me like a 4-year, $164 million deal. Every dollar is guaranteed.
Exactly, and it's an easy fix there. Now the Ravens may not want to do that. Cap situation dependent, but that's between.
I think they said earlier in the offseason it's going back up, right?
Yeah, it should go back. Exactly. It's going to go back up. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's very easy to slot Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson there. I also think it's very easy, and I said this from the get-go this offseason, for a guy like Baker Mayfield to do, and this is, we all look, these guys should always get as much money as they can. Mm-hmm. Always max out your dollars if you're an NFL player. Fully encourage that. But I think it's easy for a guy like Baker to, quote unquote, do the right thing and to say, I don't want to get paid this year. I'll get paid next year. Because if you're Baker and you go out and you sign I don't know, let's say he's not taking less than Carson Wentz, right?
No, like if he signs for 3 years and $96 million and then goes out and the Browns go 13-4, even if he's not necessarily the driving force behind it, and he throws, 28 touchdowns and 10 picks and, is as efficient as he was over the second half of last season, then, he's going to wish that he didn't sign for that much because he could have gotten more.
And conversely, if he signs that deal and the Browns goes 7-10, people are going to melt down and be furious at the Browns for signing the deal. So why not go out and do what you're saying? Go out and have the follow-up season. Prove that the Freddie Kitchen season, and I think it was an aberration. Prove that was, and because that's the only time he's ever done that really in college, in the NFL. Prove all of that, and then you can come back and say, hey, I want this contract that puts me in, above Goff or, in the Russell Wilson range or whatever it is. I'm not saying that he's worthy of that, but that's sort of where you would land. And maybe he gets as high as 40 if the Browns go win a Super Bowl for Cleveland and then take how much ever money you want, right?
Yeah. Take like LeBron's crown as the most beloved Cleveland athlete.
Right, exactly.
If he does that, I think that would be the Browns winning would be, I think, for Cleveland people above even the Cavs winning.
Yes.
But,
so far above.
Yeah.
The Browns winning a Super Bowl this year, they're 16-1. It's not a crazy idea. Would make Baker Mayfield, no one would blink at any number basically that the Browns give him if he wins.
And Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry would be lifelong heroes. I also think for Baker, his track record so far through 3 NFL seasons is obviously very mixed. He had an awesome rookie year. He had a below average second year. And then last season,
bless you.
Ooh, sorry.
It's all right. We can't control where our sneezes come from.
Last season, he sort of started off okay. And then they had that stretch of the season where it was just ridiculous weather and they threw the ball 12 times.
Yeah.
And then over the second half of the year, he was much better. So you're going to get paid more if you play well this year than you are right now, Yep. And I would imagine he thinks he's going to play well, and he's in position to succeed. He's in a system that routinely raises the efficiency of quarterbacks and schemes guys open, and he's got a good offensive line in front of him. And, at least at the top, if they can stay healthy, good receiving weapons with Odell and Jarvis Landry and the tight ends. So you would think he should be able to at least put together a season of efficient production, if not necessarily, high volume or explosive production. And I think if he does that, he's in much better position to get paid next year than he is right now.
Yep. And that stretch you mentioned really is important. So they played at Pittsburgh in week 6, at Cincinnati in week 7. So you're talking, Midwest, nasty.
And it was torrential downpour and ridiculous wind.
But then it was the Raiders,
and
the
Houston,
Texans,
right?
And the Eagles at home with crazy wind. He threw 18, 28, 25, 20, and 22 times in those 5 games. You're just not going to put up volume stats if you have to deal with that. Now, it's possible he has to deal with it again this year, but I would anticipate that his statistical production, barring 5 just crazy wind games in late October, could surpass last year. Also, there's a 17th game, so you're going to have better stats anyway.
Yeah, and it wasn't just him in those games that wasn't very good quarterback wise. It's not like
whoever they played, yeah,
right. It wasn't what was it?
They beat the Raiders. They lost the Raiders 16-6 and beat the Texans 10-7 in 2020. In 2020, it's just not normal.
Yeah, it was an anomalous, that we've used that word a lot in this podcast, an anomalous stretch of weather that, to be fair, can happen in the Midwest where they played a bunch of those games, in the middle of October and early November. But it did happen, and it definitely affected their offense, and I think the perception of him at the time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here. That's the show. Good stuff. Training camp wrap up. Good talk, dudes. Thanks to the NFL for issuing those COVID guidelines that got us a nice meaty podcast here on a random Thursday. Again, make sure you check out the First Cut podcast. You probably watching right now. The U.S. Open's going on, so go check that out. Subscribe here, rate and review. Talk to you guys tomorrow.